This is part 2 in a 3-part series for starting up your CNC making something. Quick ones are signs. What we're going to do is start. The first one we did was using a V-bit. How do I carve a sign? This is one where we're actually going to carve the letters deeper into the sign. And the third one will be how do I do a sign with raised letters. So those are the 3 that we're going to do. So this is part 2. So I'm going to start off and create a new file. The width is 12 inches, same as the last one. I've got a board. In fact, it's the same board. I'm just going to flip it over and carve on the back. And it is 5 1/4 tall and 12 inches wide and 0.75 deep. It's going to be from the center again. That way, if I'm off a little bit measurement wise, my letters should fit on the sign and look balanced left to right and up and down. I'm going to use the same letter tool, so I'll click on it. And again, last time I did the first sign, so this time I'll do my second sign. And you notice the letters have a kind of a unique shape, so I'm going to try a different letter. I want more of a block letter for this one because I want open areas in here so my bit can get in there. Okay, because we're going to carve this down into the wood similar to what we did with the V-bit, but there's going to be a square cut because we're going to use an 1/8" bit. Remember, once I did this, I clicked over here and got rid of the letters up there so that I can type my sign again and then pull that down here underneath this one. Now, if you look at that, let me close it. If you look at the sign, you can see that the spacing here is kind of goofy. That's why we use this tool right here. See it? Edit text spacing. Click on it. We'll come over here. Click here and it'll pull it together. There's 3 clicks there. Probably 3 clicks here too. 4. Maybe even 5. There we go. That looks better. Now if we come up here, highlight this one instead. I want to push these apart a little bit. And if you remember in the last video, you hit the shift key and hold it down and then click between the letters and it pushes it apart. I want to make them a little wider because when you carve down into the wood, a lot of times you get chip out. And that basically means it tears out the wood between the letters. You have a good sharp bit, you won't get that as often, but unfortunately your very, very sharp bits don't last long. So we're going to center this one left to right. Did you see the tool I picked? The alignment tools looks like that. We're going to go this way, left to right. Come down here and click on this one as well so that it's centered. We don't do them together because we want them centered to the side. If you do them together, sometimes it doesn't work as well. Up and down we're going to have to do ourselves. We could try it. Hit the shift key, select it, and let's say up and down. See it? That doesn't really look centered to me. Oh, I missed this one, didn't I? So I'll click on this one again, and then the move arrow comes up. See it? It points in 4 directions. Get close to that center mark, and then I can click and drag. I lost it. Click. Click again. Get on top of that. Click and drag, and it moves it up. I think that's about the spacing I want. Maybe a little less. Okay. Select them both. So you hit shift, draw a box around it. They're both selected. Let's try up and down. See, it centers it there. In other words, this space and this space are equal, but it doesn't equalize the space here. We'll close this, excuse me, and we'll open our Tools tab. Remember last time we used this tool, Vcarve engraving tool. This time we're going to use a pocket tool. And what happens when we use the pocket tool is that it goes inside of this, each one of these letters. It looks at it as a pocket that it has to cut out. We're going to cut down about 0.15 inches. We're not going to use this end mill. We're going to remove that one. We're going to select a new one, an 1/8 inch, and it might not be small enough. We'll find out. With the 1/8 inch, you tend to go a little slower, so I'm going to reduce this a little bit. We're going to select it, and I've already reduced it down to 35, which is plenty. And all we do is come down, edit this, and look at our depth of cut. See that pass depth? 1/4 inch. That's way too much for an 1/8 inch bit. We're going to cut that in half to about half of the diameter of the bit, 0.0625. Our step over is enough, 24%. Takes longer to do the job, but if you go too fast, it breaks off that bit. And then we're going to call this letters. And we're going to leave the pocket information there to remind you that you used the pocket tool to cut this. We're going to calculate it, and we're going to preview it. I can already see from this preview that the bit does not fit inside all the letters. So that's all we get. Well, why is that? Well, it's because if you look at your letters, go back here, you can see that they're actually skinny. So we're going to come back to we'll click on this one, come back to our letter tool, and we're going to bold it. And what bolding does is it makes them thicker. See it? Come back, we'll do the same here. Click on this one and bold it as well. If you notice, I didn't have to close this tool. I just clicked off and did it. So we'll close this, and I'm not real happy with what we got going on in here, but let's see what it looks like. Notice how it kind of squished that together, so we'll see what that looks like. You can always clean that up with a chisel. So let's double click on this, and it opens it again, and if you notice, these are already selected. So I calculate it again, reset it, and this time it looks like it got more of the letters. Let's preview it. It didn't get all of it. I can tell that already, but we'll preview it. Now there's one of two things you can do here. You can make the words bigger, or you can go to a smaller tool. If you have a smaller tool, that's what I would recommend. Just go to a smaller tool. So let's do that. If you don't have a smaller tool, and as you know, this is kind of an experiment, we can do something else right in here. We can click on this, and we can go over here. This is a transformational tool. What it does, tells me the X and Y are linked in size. I'm going to make this 1.5 inches in height. When I do that, it also makes it wider. See it? And I'm going to come down here and do the same to this one. You know, let's say we're both 1.2. When I do that, that makes them bigger. And if I zoom out using the tools up here, I click on the second one over, it zooms to the limits, which shows me everything that's there. Double click on this, should select them both, recalculate it, and see when I enlarged it, see how it moved the letters and made them bigger. It also made it wide enough that it looks like my tool gets into most of the area. So let's view it and see what it looks like. Reset our preview, preview visible, and there it is. It's big enough that it looks pretty good. I'm not real happy with the way, let's get over there so we can see it. to go to the edge when you zoom in, you have to hit the control key and hold it, and then you can slide this left or right, up or down. Okay, that's how you do that. That one doesn't look too bad. There's a little gobbledygook right in there. This one, hopefully I'm not making you seasick there. There's the boat hose. Those look kind of thin right there. So what'll happen is you just take a chisel and you can take that off and this off and that off, and that'll clean it up. Actually, what will happen, those are so thin that your bit will probably break them off. But that does it with an 1/8" bit. So that's one way you can do it. Now, when you're done, obviously, you've got this completed, you're happy with it, you click on it, and you tell it to save. We discussed this last time. I have a Next Wave CNC, have had for about 10 years. And I can save this toolpath, and you always save it to a flash drive. I do anyway, so that I can take it to the lab. I stopped taking my laptop to the lab because it ruins them pretty quick with all that sawdust. So I save it to the flash drive, load it on the flash drive, and cut out the sign. Now let's say, well, I don't want those letters that big. So what we can do is go backwards. And how do we do that? We go up here to edit, see size, undo, see that symbol right there, Control Z. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. You see that reduced the size, that reduced the bold. Okay, now they're unbolded, they're unsized. When you say, what is this mess here? Well, that's the tool path, and the tool path is always highlighted when you turn on this right here. So let's turn that off. Let's say you do not want to make the letters bigger, and your client, if you're making this for somebody, is happy with this. I think it looks like it's uncentered yet, so I'm going to select both of those, go over and get my alignment tool, and make sure that up and down is good. Good catch. Been doing this a while, maybe. So I want to close this to a save function, and I want to look at making it so I can cut it that exact size, that exact shape, without bolding it. What I have to do is I have to go in here and select a smaller bit. See this 1/8, 0.5, 3/16. All these are bigger than 1/8. What I found is I can buy a whole kit of tiny bits, and I do mean tiny bits. Even though the bit I have is excuse me, in mill, I'm going to use the ball nose because it's already set up. 1 millimeter is much smaller than an 1/8". And I have on my home computer, I'm in Florida right now, on my home computer all the way down to 0.5 millimeters because I bought a kit pack that had 0.5 all the way up to 2 millimeters. I think it was 10 bits for $10 maybe. So I'm going to select this one. It's 1 millimeter. My pass depth is not going to be 1.5. Let me select it first, and then I'll come over here and edit it. Cutting parameters. My path depth is supposed to be half of the diameter. Actually, it's supposed to be half of the radius, but that's good enough. Half the diameter. My step over is 0.1, which is 1/10. The reason I say that is when you get really tiny with these bits, they're carbide bits, so they're extremely brittle. And we'll say, okay. On my machine, I have the ability to slow it down, and I usually start at 20% for the first pass, just to see how it's doing, and then go on up based on how it does. So we'll say, okay. I'm going to click up here and remove this bit because we're using that one, and I tell it to recalculate. You notice how many passes it takes to get there? 8 passes. But it should allow you to get right in there and clean it out. So I'll reset my preview. See how it's changed? And then preview my visible toolpath. So that's another method to do it. Especially if you're insistent on keeping the size of the letters small, then you have to go to a smaller bit to get in there. So that's the tips for the day, and have fun with your CNC. And tomorrow, hopefully I can get to 3. And part 3 will be the opposite of this. How do I get those letters to stand up? The problem with getting the letters to stand up is they're subjected to any kind of striking force, like being dropped or over aggressive sanding. You can break those letters off. And raised letters are nice, but you got to protect them and make them large enough that they can stand up to any kind of damage. But we'll cover that in the next lesson. Have a great day and have fun with your CNC.